a bare bottom in it, wasn't there? Let's be honest.
Yes.
There's no point mixing our metaphors. But it was not very relaxed, so it could be right. So let's not worry about it. But I rather liked it the way Malcolm had obviously taken like the original Puccini idea, Madame Butterfly, and a lot of the original words and ideas, and just set them to a more solid disco-y thing. You know, I mean, he'll rip anything off, won't he, Malcolm? I like the way that you meet all these hopeless punks, and they're yeah, McLaren, of course, yeah, he ripped me off. I mean, they should be pleased, because McLaren's the real star. It's like being ripped off by Rembrandt. That's the way I always feel. I mean, you know, a real good old Malcolm. We'll certainly be playing that on Friday. Who have we got on Friday on Round Table?
Who have we got on Friday?
Noddy Holder, Hazel Dean, and Tony Blackburn.
Oh!
See that way, mate. Yes, let's plug ourselves. I'll do it again. Oh, yes, he's a real star, Malcolm. But so am I. Now I'm on television. I'm signing autographs outside.
Mud all over yourself, mate.
That's right. But of course, once you're a star and spend your weekends whizzing around the countryside, sort of filming these bits and bobs and so on. Really, I've been meaning to say something about this before, but it's all the experience you get of hotels. You're a man of life. You whiz around opening and closing supermarkets and things. The weekend, I managed to get myself caught in at the strangest little hotel. You know, when at the centre of a city, I better not name the city, but where it's all being, like, pulled down and this and that, and there's usually, like a piece of cheese, a wedge-shaped hotel left since the 19th century, and there's, like, motorway all around, over the top, and so on, his cars going. There's some people born in that hotel who've never been out, you know, because they don't know what city they're in, because they can't get across the road. I think it was really smashing. You know, it wasn't one of those things where, you know, like, you're in these rather sleazy hotels sometimes, there's, like, people having a party next door, and 2 o'clock in the morning, what's that, wake up and sort of, turn it down! In this case, you sort of wake up, road hog! But it was rather a wonderful hotel, because I went in, I thought, I'll lie here, you know, and there weren't many facilities, I was having a glass of water, like, and the channel that worked on the telly, and having a quick look at it, and that just had the Olympics on. More of that later. But I thought, I'll listen to the radio. There was an ancient-looking radio built into the wall there, and I turned the knob volume, and it was right up, so I thought, oh, careful, because when I switch it on, it's going to blow, so I turned it right down there. And then I turned the knob that says, like, on and stations 1, 2, 3, came off in my hand. The whole thing was, and it was obviously like, do you know when you used to be a kid, perhaps you don't remember this, but I mean, when you used to go on top of the double-decker buses and sit at the front with your mum and dad, and you'd grab hold of the rail, like, pretending to drive, and the bus would keep going. Obviously, it's one of those radios, you grab the knobs and you say, hey, what's the news? Any questions? Sort of thing, you know, you do your old programmes, just really do it yourself, it's wonderful. But I tell you what I've noticed with all these kind of hotels because most of them are obviously converted, whether they're the old hotels or what else, you know, coach houses and things like that. And of course they've all built in their sort of bath and all mod cons and this sort of little toilet thing in the corner there. Usually no lights or anything, because it's just built into the room in some way, you know, it's quite clever, no windows and so on. And they've all got these incredible extractor fans. Have you noticed that? I mean, you don't like to speculate, but I mean, what is it that people do in there? That it needs these. And as soon as you go on, you pull the light switch and you think, just go in. Yeah, I'll be down in a minute. Okay, I'll just sort of wash my hands and so on. I'll clean my teeth. You pull the little sort of cord thing, and immediately, it's like Concorde, isn't it?
Yeah.
And there's people like wigs and women's dresses, and they'll go whizzing by. You know, it's like that Marilyn Monroe shot when she stands over the just whoa, and everybody's holding the skirts down and things. But then you don't stop. You think, quick, pull it off. And you go out and sort of sit on the bed. And you can still. And it's going off for about 20 minutes, you know, it's really... Anyway, I don't want too much of that. Sometimes, nowadays, when I go into these hotels, like, I don't risk it anymore, and I go in to do whatever I have to do late at night. You book in, you open, you get your pyjamas out. Suits how old I am, I've got pyjamas. You get the pyjamas out and so on, and your toothbrush. I go in the dark, I just daren't switch it on. It's just, you know, of course it could be embarrassing the next morning, obviously. Hello, what's this in the bath? But by and large, it usually works out. The trouble is, these hotels... You feel they're not designed for humans, don't you? Nobody's actually thought about... I was in quite a nice hotel at the weekend, sort of coach house kind of place. Very pleasant and very nicely done out and so on. Stacks of sachets of coffee to get through and all that sort of thing. And I thought, I'll have a look, because we got in later, see what's happening with the Olympics, you know, and it's all that. And you switch on this little... I won't name one of the little Japanese well-known sets that's mounted. You can't move it about. It's like screwed to the wall, and you switch it on. Then the whole point of telly in there is you can get in bed, can't you? And when you get in the bed... It's like a postage stamp in there, because it's the other... They screwed it to the other side of the room, and you think, it's just Zola and Mary are tripping each other. It could have been Pinky and Perky. You know, just 2 little things on the telly. Nothing you can do. Then another one I went into on the next night, the bedside light was like a coach lamp. You know, it's all quaint. It was a 4-poster bed. I've never slept in one before. It was obviously a contemporary 4-poster. So for a start, I mean, if you, like, pulled all the curtains, you get it... They couldn't read at all, obviously, because the light's on the outside. So you open them all again. You know, there's no point sitting there and peeping out occasionally and seeing what's happening. Opened all these curtains. They had to have a look, and there's this coach lamp, very quaint. It's about 3 yards from the bed. So you switch it on, and this light comes on, and you're lying there. You think, well, you know, if you can't get to sleep, you've got to do something, like you just... to get to it and have a read, like you might pick up one of these Gideon Bible things that they're always leaving about in hotels, and perhaps you've not got to say anything you've got. Perhaps you want to read it, but it means you've got to go along, and about 2 o'clock in the morning, you've got to lean against the wall and open it, and it's all that sort of, and Ahab begat Gephoth, and Rebot begat Bebot, and so on. I mean, it's absolute madness. I have to get back into bed when you finish. Another one I was in only the other week, and I said, could I have coffee and specifically newspaper, in the morning, just because I like that half hour when you get up and have a cup of coffee and read the paper and get yourself sort of ready for the day. So when it turns like door tap tap, come in. You don't always know whether to say come in. Then sometimes I get out of bed and sometimes you're not entirely clothed and they do come in. They wait till they hear a creak. And say, whoa! Coffee all over the floor kind of thing. So they come in and say, 8 o'clock, sir, here it is, there's the coffee, kind of thing. And so you said, oh, thank you, I did order a paper. That's right, sir, the paper's down at the reception desk. I said, well, won't I have to sit up in bed fairly thoroughly to be able to read it from here? No. So you feel like, look, why don't you go down, and you shout it up, because if they're determined that they'll bring the coffee in the room, paper at the reception desk, because I can't read the headlines from that distance, and so you feel like, right, carry on, sort of thing, and, hey, I can't do it.
Get the voices
now. Sort of, hey, Zola, come, 7. What? Gorgonzola? Is that the headline? Good heavens, what? Princess Di falling in the Gorgonzola? Game Zola! Oh, Game Zola comes. 70, you think, oh, what can you do about it? I don't know. SNBPFP. I'm not going to translate that this week. Next week, if it's still the same, I will.
Unbelievable, isn't it?
TOTP now.
Ooh.
Top of the pops. And I was going to come down to stop it, because I do come occasionally. Peel says, look, come down and keep me company for a bit. And I knew you were on as well. I thought, well, we'll stand around and drink pints like men afterwards, and sort of be jolly, because I'd like to stand at the side of Top of the Pops and watch all you chaps. Didn't go, because I thought, I'd better go and see some other things, it can't all be fun. And of course I'm always very pleased that Peel does so well, really, because, it must have been 1967, perhaps early 68, when I did see him, before I'd even met the man, years ago, when all Radio 1 jocks got their turn, he had his one turn. And I always remember he looked around the studio, and because it was all live in those days, and he said, here, isn't he, standing there with his long hair like Neil, and he said something like, oh, well, that's very nice, and now, up from number 17 to number 9, it's your favourites and mine. Nothing. Like his Amen Corner, he's just staring round. So people, I thought, oh, no. And they said, that's it. And they wouldn't have him on again right till the 80s, and now he's a bit of a star. But, of course, it was being pre-recorded, and I gather that he did, because he told me, he said, it was Tracy, obviously, it's really embarrassing, because now he sees himself as a bit more professional. I'm a television man, I'm, not just an amateur, nervous amateur. And Tracy's doing all that sunglasses, hoopy-poopy, sort of sitting on a thingy, like a big deck chair, am I right?
It was there, she was standing next to it, yeah.
Oh, well, there she was, wasn't it? Yeah, because I've got it on video, and I've never seen it yet, I haven't been home in time, so, chinky, sunglasses, and then Peel apparently said, I've got it written down, he said, Tracy Ullman and that sunglasses, because it panned round from her.
It's one continuous
shot.
That's
so you can't cut, it comes from her, round to him, and he goes, Tracy Ullman there, thank you, and that's sunglasses, and our next guests have flown from America just to be with us on Top of the Pops. Tossing and turning. 2 things I do inordinately well. It's... I couldn't remember Windjammer. But of course this time they could retake it. But then he told me something about you.
Is it own-up time?
Yes, it's before Tracy Ullman. He said, I was standing with Richard, and he said, oh gosh, because there'd been some technical hang-ups, hadn't they?
We had been waiting a long time.
Waiting about half an hour. Then he said, Richard suddenly said, I want to go to the toilet, I want to go to the lab. He said, look, I'll tell you what, he said, I'll introduce Tracy Ullman, and then dash to the lab, and there'll be plenty of time, because I can go to the lab, and you're doing the next link, and I'll be coming back to after Windjammer. Appropriately enough. So he's standing there, this is for the listeners at home, there's our Skinner there, stood there, so, and here we are, okay, it's blah, 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 and it's sunglasses, Tracy Ullman, plinky, plinky, sunglasses, goes Tracy. Skinner said, right, okay, mic's off, here I go, sprints off to the toilet, straight across Tracy Ullman's set. So she's standing there going, sunglasses, suddenly this guy clutching his sort of purse and going, rushing back, sort of, up, suddenly realised you were going past the deck chair.
This is totally true. I didn't realise, seriously, that I was on the set until I was there. What?
You should have joined in, sunglasses, as if you were on the beach.
We did it again.
Yeah. But I couldn't go there, I just looked in briefly, not briefly, I saw the whole show. I went to the old Vic, because part of my theatre-going stint this year, which I'm involved in, and to see The Boyfriend, which I never saw in its early days, a jolly boo-poopy-doo musical, obviously, a bit of a spoof on the 20s. Anna Quayle was very good in it, as Madame du Bonnet, incidentally, just apropos of nothing particular. And you suddenly look back and you thought, all these girls are supposed to be 1920s girls, and they're all, wee, little jolly little, Tracy Ullman style, over-the-top little sex pots kind of thing. And they're all sort of, you suddenly think, of course they are now. probably our grannies in a sense. I mean, they're not really, but they symbolise that, and I suppose our grannies must have looked like that. And once they stop kicking their legs about, you think, whoops, there we go, kick, kick, doing the Charleston, and all these little, but they're not little knickers, they're great big long, what they call them, French knickers or something, I don't know, they go right down to their knees. So, unfortunately, you think that, you know, they're our grannies, but underneath those knickers, there are probably a lot more knickers by the looks of it. Hold theirs. The Olympics, can't go without that, because when I did get back to my hotel and look at television, of course, there it is. Synchro swimming. I'm sorry, I won't put up with it. Synchro swimming. Do you have a letter there about synchro swimming?
I have a letter from M. Solby, who says...
Every time I've mentioned synchro swimming in the past, somebody writes...
It says here, synchro swimmers are not dolls. Could you, Mr. Waters, hold your breath for 50 seconds while upside down in water? Actually, Johnny, you'd like to do it over
Just
there.
hold on. Yes, I know you'd have me do it. I'm not saying... I'm just saying it looks silly. There's no point denying that. People will write, you see, people do write, and the commentator says, it's very difficult. I'm rather inclined to agree with Dr. Johnson in a slightly different situation, who once said, very difficult. I wish it was impossible. And I entirely agree with him. Peel had said, gosh, did you see it? He said, the synchro swimming, but he'd seen the solo thing. He said, how can it be solo and synchro swimming? He thought it meant they went together, you know, like one person doing a chorus line and kick looked silly. You know, just the one person flapping and kicking their legs. Absolutely stupid. But I think it's meant to be synchronised with the music. And when they come on with all this beauty nonsense, they got the nose clips. They got a nose clip on, and then I think they must have eye clips because their eyes are always open, staring round. And then I think they must have teeth clips to hold their teeth in a fixed smile. So they go, why not? Sort of thing. And then they pick the music, and then the commentator said of something like, you know, Vanessa Farnsbond or something, oh, she's picked the music so well. All it was something like, if it wasn't something like there's this woofing in the background, and I think it was Music Is My First Love by John Miles, or T-Shirts Are My First Love by Smiley Miley. It could have been anything. But one of those was definitely on. What next? I mean, the Russians take the gold with the Moscow State Circus if there are any more Olympics, you know, because if you can stand on your head or something, there's the person there. I'm not saying it's not difficult, I'm not saying I could do it, but that doesn't, there's a lot of things that I can't do that don't get a gold medal for, I'm afraid. I tell you what gets up my nose with all that, though, talking of, it would do if I got one of those little clips on. People's national anthems, why do they bother with all that? God's will. I mean, I remember the first experience I had of this, of other people's national anthems, was going along many, many years ago to the World Fair. Whoops, knocked the bell over. The World Fair in Brussels, when I was still a schoolboy. First time I'd been on a plane, I wanted to see...
1958.
It was, 57, 58, I think, yeah. Right. To see, there's a big art exhibition, and there's a big jazz spectacular, you know, like the Newport Jazz Festival, a lot of Americans that you couldn't see here. So me and a mate of mine went over.